Alright, hey everyone. I want to talk a little bit about the problems with crafting in Path of Exile 2. Now, these are my personal opinion. These are the things that I face, and I think a few players might share the same opinion as me. So let's just see how this is gonna, get along. We'll get to know in the comments soon enough. So, first things first. Even prior to 0.3, there were a bunch of problems, and the recombinators were introduced. The reforging bench had some extra functions, but I wanted to show you how it's interesting in Path of Exile 2 that the same game does some things good and some things not so good. It does some things correctly, I believe, and some things not so. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Now, if you go into the socketables, you can see something interesting where you have these storm runes. You have the lesser storm runes, or the lesser runes, the regular runes, and the greater runes. And this is a very interesting example because you can actually craft these runes from the lower tier to the higher tier. Very, very interesting. Now let me show you
Oh,
what I mean.
it's you.
If I go to the currency exchange and I go to look for the runes, let's just say I want a lesser desert rune. Is there anything I can use to trade for this? Orb of Transmutes, Regal, Exalted maybe? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's just do one Exalted Orb for this. And let's just get
All right,
that. There
your
we go.
beer is
Very
ready to
nice
suit
trade.
what's new.
I appreciate that trade, whoever you may be. Very nice for my showcase here. So here is the beauty of reforging. You can put in a bunch of lesser runes. I'm just going to fill all the slots up. And what you get is a regular rune of that same um, base type, right? So it's fire damage. You go from add 4 to 6 to add 7 to 11 and so on and so forth. So this is a very interesting example because, oh, another thing, I really feel that the reforging bench should allow us to just stack the results before taking it out. Like this is just a bit laborious, but fine, it's whatever, right? So now let me just reforge all of these, or rather almost all of these to the next tier. Just keep some lesser ones here. Now, what I have is a bunch of lesser desert runes and a bunch of regular desert runes. Now check this out. When I put in the regular desert runes, I can actually reforge them into a greater desert rune. Huh, how cool is that? Now, if I were to fit them into my socketables, you can see that I have the lesser version, which can be crafted to the regular version, which can be crafted to the greater version. Now, here comes the problem. The socketables is the only, I guess, currency item that practices this, which is horrible because in 0.3, GGG actually introduced some additional currency, which is a higher tier currency for the transmutation orbs, augmentation regal orbs, exalted orbs, and chaos orbs, right? And as you can see, we already had the jeweler orbs, you had the lesser, the greater, and the perfect. But guess what? Unlike the way the crafting works for the socketables, you're not allowed to do the same with the jeweler orbs, any of these at all. Like I can't just go to the reforging bench, pop these in. It just doesn't allow me to reforge them. As you can see, I do not have the ability to reforge them, right? So that is very counterintuitive because the game already allows you to do it for the socketables. And it makes sense. It's the true idea of crafting, right? Like you want to forge it to be a stronger version of themselves. We should be able to do it with all other forms of currency, but for some reason the game limits us from doing this. So this I think is a major, major flaw in Path of Exile 2, and I hope they figure out a way to improve this. I do believe it's only fair because a lot of players in the end game would have farmed out a lot of orbs, exalteds, and all of these things. And what happens is we come to a point where we just want to filter these off completely, and they just turn into trash. And when I go into maps, I drop like hundreds and thousands of these, but it's pointless. I can't do anything with 239 lesser jeweler orbs, right? And no one wants to even trade for these because um, if you were to just get a greater jeweler orb, you just get 4 support gem sockets instead. It's not like a +1. You can just apply this and you get 4, right? You don't even need the predecessor, which is the lesser jeweler orb. You could just go straight to the perfect if you have a perfect. You could just get 5 sockets right away. So what they should truly do is introduce a way for you to be able to craft things from the lower tier to the higher tier, the same way the socket tuples allow you to. And I think this is a very, very good example of a very peculiar flaw that the game has right now, right? I don't think many other currencies. Okay, Essence is another good example. In Essence as well, you have a very, very weird problem here, where, for example, if I were to take, let's see, let's just take the greater essence of aberration. So there is a lesser version of this essence, a greater version, and a perfect version. And they don't all do the same thing. Like, for example, the greater version actually gives you upgrade magic to rare, adding a guaranteed modifier. The perfect version says removes a random modifier and augments a rare with a new modifier. So they do not work the same way, right? So it might make sense that you can't craft one tier to the next, but even so, I think you should still be able to because it just gives you more options. Instead, what happens is if I were to craft this, I do have the ability to do it. It actually gives me a random essence of another type. Random. I can't even determine what it's going to be, right? And all this RNG does not really help the state of the game, right? I truly feel that the game needs to have a better way of just doing this altogether. Um, it needs to encourage players who farm more to be able to utilize it to at least guarantee some results. And I think the best example of, I guess, the biggest offender of in this case is the Recombinator, the worst invention in crafting systems I have ever seen in a video game. Ever. I don't think I've ever seen anything worse than a Recombinator. Right now, let me show you why. The way the Recombinator works is it allows you to select stats from each item. You got to pick at least one from each. They got to be the same base type, which means both of these have to be helmets, and they both have to be only like a particular helmet. Like for example, this is an int only helmet, right? So you can only use an int helmet with an int helmet to combine them. You can't use an int dex or a dex int. You can't combine it that way. If they're both int dex requirements, you can. Like for example, if they're both shoes with requirements of dex and int, which is its base type, you can actually use two of these shoes to combine them. So now let me give you an example of what happens. So let's say I take a tier 5 um, modifier, right? It can be suffix, prefix, it can be any combination. But let's say I take a tier 5 combined with a tier 4. As you can see, the chance for success is pretty high. I can even select another modifier here, as long as it's not the same, what do you call this, type of modifier. Like for example, I can't pick two resistance modifiers to combine them. Right, so I can't pick cold and what do you call this? Lightning of the same. Um, sorry, let me see. Cold. Yeah, I can't pick cold and cold to combine together because it's just not possible. I can't pick cold here and cold here. I can only pick cold and lightning, so I can't combine the same modifiers together, which makes sense because the item can only have one modifier of each type, right? But let's just say I want this to have all three resistances. So I want the cold, I want the lightning, and I want fire. What happens is the chance drops as I select another modifier, right? This is fine. This is fine, okay? Now, here's what else happens. If you pick modifiers of higher tier, the chance also goes lower. So if I pick tier 1 here and tier 1 here, look at that, very, very small chance. So selecting more modifiers and modifiers of a higher tier lowers the chance for success. Here's my gripe about this. This is okay, but the game should reward players who have spent time playing the game. And how they can do that is by allowing us to increase the number of order artifacts that we utilize in order to increase the chance of success. So if you're telling me 24 order artifacts give you 17% chance of success, allow us to use up to 100 to at least get 89. If not, 150 to get 100%. A lot of games already implement this, from mobile games to even free-to-play games. They already implement this system where you can increase your chance of success by just farming more currency items. So I see no reason why this game should not be implementing this, and this one simple change will suddenly make the Recombinator great again, right? So you're gonna go make the Recombinator great again. I don't know what the short form of that would be, but it would be an ideal thing to do. So these are the main two problems that I feel crafting has, is that you don't really have a way of crafting items to the next tier in a sustainable manner, and the Recombinator completely sucks. And other than that, there's also a major problem which I feel many other RPGs don't quite have, which is you don't often see a game which requires you to, not really requires, but almost, like really forces the player to try to get an item filter, right? Reason being is because you just drop so much trash in the game that you play that it makes no sense anymore. The game doesn't even have an in-game item filter. It wants you to straight up build your own filter and then add it into the game. Now, I think that they can solve this pretty easily because they have shown that they can by introducing the market. This is one of the biggest changes in Path of Exile 2, and I think it's a huge quality of life change that really makes players want to play the game in the game and not outside the game, right? Aside from that, of course, the passive skill tree and all that require a lot more additional ways of doing the math, and I think they can easily solve that by adding a test dummy. Like just make this statue of Hillock a test dummy or something, and that'll pretty much solve the problem. Because I get it, there's certain things like 20% increased damage for each type of elemental ailment that you don't want to preemptively show. Like for example, if I were to hold my alternate down here, I can actually see how much of damage improvements Blinding Strike will give me. As you can see, the normal strike's damage increases by this much. But I can't see that on Harness the Elements because you don't know how many type of elemental ailments I'm going to be able to apply, right? So let us do this math by just giving us a test dummy. And that would pretty much solve all of that problems. These are very simple things that the game can introduce, and I think they're holding back for specific reasons. I have my ideas as to why they may be doing it, but I think the solution that I'm providing is pretty straightforward, right? We need a test dummy and we need ways to actually play around and try out reforging and reward players for actually collecting currency by playing the game. There's no reason not to, and I think that would be ideal, right? Yeah, those are the main things that I just wanted to highlight in terms of crafting. And I think if this can be solved, the game will just be in a much, much better place. Yeah, and that's it for me for this one. I will be coming back with another video on the build for my monk, and we'll be checking out the Copper Citadel together. So yeah, see you guys in the next one. Take care.